All right, guys, welcome back. Season 2 Pro Capital Show for Wisdom and Wealth. I'm excited to be back because we got some cool stuff planned for this year and amazing things. But I wanted to kick off the show. We got Makenzie Kahan, our Director of Operations here at ProCap, and I wanted to kick it off with you because you've been the longest employee of the company.
I think that deserves a round of
Yes, a
applause in
round of
itself.
applause.
Round of applause. It's just the two of us, but round of applause.
But we had people that fell out, didn't work.
Mhm.
Some good, some bad, and you've been on, but you've been able to see a lot of good and bad that's gone on, right? So we've had a lot of wins, we've had a lot of humbling experiences, and you've been able to walk through a lot of that with me and us as we brought on team members, lost team members, and I thought it would be really good to start with you because you have a totally different perspective than I do in the business and talk about the wins and even seeing some of our progress from just a different lens, right? From an
Yeah.
operational lens, um, from a female, from just you're coming into a new line of work
Mhm.
altogether, and seeing like what good behaviors did for you and all kinds of stuff that we could talk about. But I appreciate you coming on.
You pay me to be here,
Hey,
so
baby.
yeah, you pay me technically to be here, so I'm forced to be here. No, yeah, I come from a totally different background. I actually graduated with a PR degree, which I think has been extremely helpful in a sense of just knowing the ins and outs of the business itself, but then also having an event background too. And then obviously I did staffing for a year, which is as much as it wasn't for me, I gained a lot of knowledge just in that like year of what, certain companies or managers look for in the business and not just the personality of somebody, but also their skill set, right? And that has been a huge transition, but has really helped me in this to kind of figure out what we need as a company or a firm to kind of bring on certain individuals or what we look for or even organization of the systems and processes. I know we talk about systems and processes all the time and the benefits of it. um, and that was something I laugh about it because when I first came on, Corey, that was like one of the first things you mentioned to me was the Bible.
The Bible.
The Bible. It was like
Yeah.
you're like, we got to live by this Bible. You need to put together these systems and processes. And I think what's so beneficial to having systems and processes in place is it allows you as an owner or a manager, if you're managing a team or a group of people, to step away, or if you have to leave, that there's these systems and processes in place and the business can run efficiently.
Yeah.
And that was probably what one of the first things I did when I came on was put together this quote unquote Bible for the business. And I think it's been really well. Obviously, we're still in the midst of hiring people, right? And really trying to figure out what we need to change in that Bible. But I think that was a really good stepping stone when we first started, at least. So,
It's huge. It's been big for me because, I mean, I can be kind of scatterbrained sometimes, right? Like I got ADD and I want to
same.
go, squirrel 2 seconds,
Yeah.
every 2 seconds. I think this is a great idea and this is a great
Mm,
idea. We need to try this and this and this. And well, all that's awesome, but it gets you distracted from some of the things you're supposed to be doing, right? But
yep.
one thing that I really love about it is it creates consistency in the business, and consistency ultimately, what is internal reflects external at some point, right? And so, if you're messed up in the head, eventually other people are going to start seeing that. And so the same thing for the office or for any business. It was, as long as we are structured inside, we don't have to be perfect, but as long as we're structured inside and we become consistent, that relays to everybody outside. So our clients or prospects, when they come in the door, our best people have seen how articulate we've been in our communication just because we've been consistent internally in our processes, and so we can communicate
Mm,
externally really well, right? And so that was a big one. I tell you what was the coolest thing for me was when we started, or we really were started humming with some of this stuff. Was Monday is largely prep day. And we've messed around with some of this, right?
yep.
But Monday's prep day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, meeting days, block calendar, block schedules, Fridays wrap up. and prep for next week. And so what was so good for me was Mondays, especially during our review times or whatever meetings we have lined up for the week. I'd come into my desk and you started laying everything out
Mm.
prepped ahead of
It's
time.
my OCD kicking in
Oh
too.
my
Yeah.
gosh. I was like, to me, it was like, especially as an owner of a business, I was like, take my money, you know?
Mm.
I'm like,
Have it all. Give it to me. Give it to me. I'm not complaining. Like I
but
said, you pay me to be here.
that to me, that was the value, and really, there was a reign of truth that stuck with me. That Cody Sanchez, that I love following. She's out of Austin.
Mm,
The Main Street Millionaire that she talks about was uh, somebody who's effective at what they do, who is a game changer,
mm,
shows you week one.
mm,
And that was something you did. I came in and found some documents for a client that we had to get some things done with their attorney and align up with their estate plan. And it was week one. I was like, oh my gosh. Right. And so I'm like, oh, we got somebody.
mm.
Okay. And so that's been excellent the whole time through. So, anyways, I like talk about like that behavior. What about you? Yeah, okay, maybe that's an OCD kind of
Yeah.
trait, but what about you? Um, like led to that? Like
Yeah.
why are you the one that go execute that fast, or why do you want to go do that? Why is somebody saw you the value that I saw in you, just like Nick, who was my headhunter essentially, who found you, you know, what how has that gotten to this to what kind of I can't even talk right now, but how did that trait come about for you?
Yeah. I think sports was a big one. We always talk about that, right? Having
Yeah.
an athletic background, um, and learning how to kind of manage that. But I will say, this is why I think it's so applicable even when I did events, right? I have this one story that kind of sticks out in my head. And when I got brought over originally, I had some event background, right, when I was at my first ever job, but it wasn't as extensive of, "Hey, you're planning a Formula 1 race for 350,000 people, and you're gonna be the only event production manager, and you're gonna do it by yourself."
Mm.
And anything basically that touched the track was my job. And so when you're I think I was at that age, 24, 25. So it's scary, right? And you're like, "How am I gonna put on this event?" And one big pivotal moment of you got to step up and you got to learn to do things for yourself. Like nobody is going to teach you this stuff. Sometimes you just got to go and dig it.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting at my desk and part of my job at the time was also opening ceremonies. So that's national anthem singer, that's the UT band, Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, flyover crew. And I remember sitting there and I go, how do I get a flyover crew? Like, what do you do? Like, what do you like, I don't even know what paperwork or who do I get in contact with? Is this a phone call? Is
Yeah.
this, I didn't know. And I remember at the time I walked into my boss's office, who at the time was the CEO, and we had a really good relationship. And I remember asking him, I said, "Hey, like, can you help me out with this? How do I go about getting a flyover crew?" And he looked me dead in the face and goes, "I don't know. Figure it out." And I just remember being like, "How do I even figure this out? Like, what do I do?" So I'm
Google.
researching. Yeah. So I'm researching, but it's not exactly giving me pinpoint information. But that was probably such a pivotal point because I ended up just digging out random pilot numbers, phone numbers, and random emails. And it was days on end conversations of like talking to pilots of like, what paperwork do I need? I mean, I would literally, right when I would call them, I'd go, "Do you have an hour?" Because it wasn't going to be a quick conversation. It just wasn't. How do I
Yeah.
fill this paperwork out? What paperwork, how long does it take to clear? Because that's also a big thing with events is you got to make sure that flyover crew is ready and good to go before the event takes place. Is this like to clear out this paperwork? Is this gonna take 3, 4 months? Like,
Yeah.
how long is this? What's that process look like? And that was the first, I would say, really big eye-opening experience for me was think for yourself.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
And do it how you would want it done too. And that's why, one of my first weeks coming in and lining the paperwork on the table for you and organizing everything. Yes, it's extreme OCD and I have it. It's an issue. I admit it. Okay. It's a very much an issue, but that made me realize, hey, like you would want it this way too.
Yeah.
You would want it set up. You would want it organized. You want to limit as much problems as possible on the front end. Sure, there's going to be hiccups along the way. There always is hiccups, but you need to prep as much as you can to make it run as efficiently as possible. And I would say probably besides sports, that was the biggest eye opening at a young age for me is you got to put this event on. It better be seamless.
Yeah.
And if there's hiccups, you better be able to hide it pretty well.
Yeah.
So you better just roll with the punches. But
Yeah.
I still remember the flyover crew because that was the hardest one for me was what do I do? Like I've
Yeah.
never worked with pilots or how do I get this F-16, F-18? Like what do I do? You know?
I think it it speaks to yeah, we talk about sports a lot because you played soccer at Texas Tech,
And
right?
Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State too, right? And so we talk about that a lot because like, what are the best kind of players that you want are the coachable ones, the ones who are willing to jump in any drill, and even if you look like a fool.
Hmm.
And the thing is like you look like a fool for a short term, right? Until all of a sudden you don't look like a fool because
Yeah.
you've got the concept now, and so you can get the drill done. The same thing happens with work, and so that's what I love about it, and that's what I saw was basically, those game changers were people that applied themselves, and that's what you were, right? You came in and you were a problem solver out the gate, and if I didn't know, you found out. Or
Yeah.
what I really loved is, man, when I was gone, all of a sudden, you'd shoot me a message. Don't worry about your. I remember we were at Disney World, and
Yeah.
you were like, "Don't worry about these emails in your inbox. I'll send you an basically a summary of anything I need from you at
Mhm.
the end of the day or the week." And I was like, it's amazing, right?
Mhm.
And so what happened was that freed me up to enjoy the vacation, or be present on whatever trip I'm on, work or not. And it was great because Megan, my wife, and she's loving it. And
Mhm.
so she was like, he's not holding his phone every 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And she said, this has been the best trip ever. And so it's been really powerful because like somebody else could do their job
Mhm.
well.
Well, and that's I think too, I like I said, it's putting yourself in that person's shoes or that position, right? And my parents owned a business. And I got to see
Yes.
it firsthand, right? When
Perspective
we
right
would
there.
go on vacations and they would be on the phone constantly with their employees. And I'm like, we're here to enjoy family time. We're here to be together. And as much as work and obviously being able to support your family is super important, it's also you got to enjoy those moments because by no means if you interviewed me on my deathbed am I ever going to say, "Oh, I wish I would have worked more."
Right.
I'm gonna be more involved or want those memories, those core memories with my family.
Yeah.
And so I think that's constantly what I was trying to do in my head was how do I make it to where Corey can enjoy his time with his family and not worry about I mean, the building's not burning down
Yeah.
essentially. There's not like a death going on either. So it's I want you to enjoy that moment with your family.
Yeah.
Right. So that was like a big thing. Um, but yeah, I think sports just as a whole, I think one thing, and we talk about this too, the hiring process.
Yeah.
One thing that we really look for is somebody that can think for themselves. Um, and it's funny because when we started doing interviews, right, that kind of segued into uh, a little bit of my background with hiring and kind of what we look for. But one of the first couple interviews that we did together, it was a Zoom call of some sort. I can't remember, but
Oh, yeah. We've had
uh,
this a few times.
yeah, it's been a couple times
Yeah.
now. But like the biggest thing that I look for
Yeah.
is people researching the company,
Doing their homework.
doing their homework. It's
Yeah.
so easy to do. You have so many resources nowadays.
Yeah.
I mean, LinkedIn, you can find out so much about a person. Their social medias, you can find out company websites. And you know straight away if somebody's lying through their teeth. We've been there before.
Yeah.
You would ask them, "Hey, did you look at our, founders video?"
Yeah.
They'd be like, "Yeah." You'd be
Yeah.
like, "What did you like about it?"
Yeah. I'm asking for a
What did you like? And
specific.
they're
What
like,
do you think?
"I watched it a couple weeks ago." And I'm like, "Okay, that doesn't even make sense
Yeah.
anyways because if you really wanted this job, you would be studying up on the company even 30 minutes to an
Like
hour
right
before the
before.
interview.
Yeah.
So it didn't make any sense to me, but it was so funny because we would be in the middle of this interview, and the second they would answer, it'd be like an opening question. Did you take a look at our website? And they
Yeah.
couldn't answer it. Immediately, I'd be messaging you next.
Next.
Like not even worth it. Don't even waste even 5 minutes on this
You came
person.
in one time and you were like, "Why did you keep talking to them?" And
Yes.
I'm like, "What's wrong?" You were like, and I was being polite, and
Yeah.
you were like, "Done." Then we're cut them
Done.
off. They're done. They didn't do their homework. They don't
Hmm.
want this job. And and honestly, it's true because it relates to anybody who wants something in their life,
Hmm.
right? Like a lot of people say they want something, they won't go work for it. You don't
Nope.
really want it. You like the idea of it. You don't want it.
No, you don't want it.
So this anybody who's and so it's easier to complain about not getting it and say like, they didn't like me or they didn't give me a real chance I'm like, you didn't give yourself a chance.
No.
So that's funny.
Yeah, that was a big
So,
one.
well, okay, we'll talk about share what I'd like to share also is, because we're in growth mode,
Yeah.
right? We want advisors, we want new team members, we want people on board who want to go work that align with our values, right? They love their family, they have their faith, they are awesome workers, and they go apply themselves, and that's basically it. And so we do a little bit of coaching, and we give them minutes, they run a mile with it. And
Mhm.
so talk about like what attracted you to ProCap? What has kept you here? Because we've all had short stays at
Mhm.
places. But like, what's kept you here, or even like the vision forward? Like, what would you say to somebody who's flirting with the idea of wanting to join the team or come on, or what your kind of experience in that pathway?
Yeah, I would say obviously you were a big selling point, right? I think people need to think about this is why I always say an interview is a two-way streak. If you wanna be happy for the person that you work for or you work with, and I think you overall were besides the company itself, was a huge selling point. I think during my interview, you had even asked me, you said, "Do you want a family? Do you want kids?"
Mm.
And I was like, "Oh my god, I'm dying to be a mom." "Yeah, of course I do." And you're like, "I want you, like, to have as many babies as you want,"
Yeah,
right? And that was such a huge selling point for myself and, like, just the mentorship that I knew that I was gonna gain, and we talk about this all the time too. Obviously, I wanna be a leader and I wanna grow and one day, right, have this team underneath me. And, I'm not a very transparent person. I struggle with it. I hate being like, to me, it feels mean sometimes.
yeah,
But you've brought that out of me so much, and it's so applicable to not just, like, work itself, but my personal life is my relationships. It's helped a lot of my relationships, my family, my friends, dating, whatever that looks like. It's helped so much to just be transparent, and that's the kind of person that you wanna work for, the person that pushes you kind of out of your comfort zone
yeah,
a little bit. And so I think that in itself was such a huge selling point is this person going to push me and better me, or am I going to be chilling
yeah,
and just content with what's going on? And I know, once again, with my sports background, I like to be pushed.
yeah,
And I need somebody that's constantly going to be like, you can do better.
yeah.
Get out of your comfort zone, right? I know speaking engagements will be another thing for sure, but I self-diagnosed myself. I told you with glossophobia. It's like an intense fear of public
Yeah.
speaking. I don't know if I actually have it, but I do. Okay.
Which is
But
funny for listening. What's funny about this is she did it like our first event. She spoke. She introduced me at our first event.
yes,
I asked her to do it, and she did it, no problem. The next time I asked her to do it, she like freaked out. I'm like, didn't no, no,
no,
please don't do this to me.
I think I
Please,
like prayed
you
to you.
texted me. You were like, please don't make me.
Yeah,
This."
I was
I'm like,
begging.
don't quit. I thought you were like on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
premise of quitting. I'm like, don't, no,
I was
don't
like, I
worry
won't
about
even
it.
remember my name. You put me up there, and I'm gonna be like, I someone, anyone, what's my name?
Yeah,
What's my name? Anyone, draw attention to it. Yeah, so I think that was a big selling point. I think that's honestly what I would tell other advisors or people coming on is, you know, do you see yourself in this environment? Do you see yourself with this team? Do you want to push yourself? If you do, you're surrounded by people that will push you. Trust me. Like we always joke about now how transparent we all are and
yeah,
how we all give each other a bunch of crap. And, it's work hard, play hard at the end of the day. But you need a team and to surround yourself with very positive, motivated individuals. And if that's not you, next,
yeah,
move on. Like you're not made for us and we're not made for you.
yeah,
Um, but I would say probably that was the biggest thing is just making sure that I was going to be on a team or work under somebody that was gonna constantly be trying to make me better, not just in the work, but also personal life.
yeah. And
So
you've been doing that, man. That's right. Like you're anybody who doesn't know, Mackenzie's huge in her fitness,
mm,
and which is actually she started it last year, a year ahead of us.
yeah.
But at our team meeting this year, it was all kind of a reigning theme was better physical fitness, and
Mhm.
so like that's been I got to track my calories on my fitness pal, which by the way, a Cobb salad is not a very calorie friendly
Do you do
meal.
ranch?
No, it was like 1,400 calories yesterday at Moxie's. It was dumb. I'm like, what the
Did
heck?
you get grilled
It was
chicken or did you
like,
get fried
no, I got
chicken?
steak, but it was just like it destroyed my calorie count for the day. So I'm like, well, I can't basically eat anything for the
Yeah.
rest of the day.
Water it is.
So, but it was just cool because like a bunch of my mentors or people that I listen to, they even talk about like the better shape they got in, the more money they make.
Mhm.
And it would there's a lot of things that go in that, um but it was cool because Mackenzie, you've had an awesome influence even on starting this podcast, right?
Mm.
And um have been on for some cool things there. And I laugh because even the other day we had a guy from Edward Jones, close guy that we trust, right? He came in looking at potentially coming onto the team, and Shaler, one of our advisors, comes in wearing a bunch of. He just did the dopey challenge in Walt
Yeah.
Disney World, and he came in with all these medals clanking around with his ears on, and we all start talking trash. Oh,
Oh,
we had
yeah.
to pause the whole meeting.
Yeah,
And
poor
so,
poor him. He's just sitting there like, "What is
yeah,
even going on?" We're just all talking crap to one another. Like, "What is this? Is this the environment I wanna be in? This is what I mean.
this is
Test the
well,
waters.
honestly, that's
Test the
Tessa
waters."
Waters.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean
test the
that was
waters
like the
right here.
best exposure you could have
Uh-huh.
got. So,
Yep.
but yeah, I just thought it was awesome. But like, so okay, this is great. So what tell me about like the vision of the future, like even if we're somebody who's coming on board, or like how do you see us or even yourself going in this path? It doesn't have to be exact, right? But what's got something you has you excited about the path that we're on right now?
Yeah, I think it's just growth overall.
Mm.
Just watching as the team gets larger. Because even when I first came on, it was just us 2.
Yeah.
And we're just trying to figure it out. And then now we've expanded, we've grown. Now we have the podcast, we've brought on more clientele, advisors, right? And just the growth overall. And it's only going to get better from here. And I think that's what's so exciting about it is just knowing that we're going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to be better. We're going to continue to learn
Yeah.
from every person that's brought on from different circumstances, right? And we talk about this too in a sense of we want to expand.
Yeah.
And I think it for me at least, because I do want to manage a bunch of different teams, just to go to these different financial firms
Mm.
all over and pro cap firms all over and
Yeah.
just get to coach up these people and these teams and make them better. And I see that for Pro Capital too as well as just the expansion in itself and the growth in itself. And I think it's a really cool thing because I mean, I've been here what, year and a half now?
Yeah.
And the growth that we've already had in a year and a half is insane from the time that I started.
Yeah.
So, I think that's something that's just a really cool thing, and if you want growth and if you wanna grow within, your company or your firm, this is a place to come to is because we do have different avenues that you can go into, and you and I are always trying to put our heads together for different positions and
Yeah.
how to keep on hardworking people. Because at the end of the day, I'm always gonna choose a hardworking person over a smart person
Right.
any day.
All day.
All day, every day.
Yeah.
Like, I want the person that works and grinds and can figure things out for themselves.
Yes.
It's a big thing.
Yeah.
It's funny how literally nobody nowadays can think for themselves. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think just the overall growth and the expansion of the company and just every day I feel like we're growing. Little by little, we always talk about get 1% better
Yeah.
every day, and I feel like as a firm, we've gotten 1% better every day. Whether, it's from not necessarily the most positive of things, they're lessons, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a lesson that makes us 1% better.
Yeah.
So I think that's just a big thing. It's just the growth and expansion just as a company.
I think it's an attitude, right? I
Mm,
mean, it's a lot like, and athletes can go down a wrong rabbit hole too.
yeah.
But it's a lot of as athletes we were kind of preached into was like we gotta have a short memory.
Mm,
We got to get over things and move on to the next play. You don't have time
yeah.
to dwell a lot of times. And so I had one of my mentors, Erin Botsford, she was trying to help me out. She knew that we wanted to grow the team,
Yep.
and even put a guy, helped introduce a guy, ended up came on the team. Well, they didn't last 5 months, and it sucked. And so and it was funny because excuse me, we can be super hardcore, we can be super uplifting, encouraging, and do all the good things. At the end of the day, we're really accountable too, right?
Mm,
And or we have to be, otherwise we're not going to get anything done.
yeah.
And where this guy couldn't handle a little bit of accountability. And I'm not saying I'm perfect in any of that, that's for sure. I am not in the least perfect picture.
Guilty. Yeah.
Yeah. But that was one thing I really liked about you coming on was correction was not a form of disapproval for you, right? You were coachable.
Yeah.
And correction was just like, hey, I know what to do, I know what not to do. And it was just funny because you said that to Shaler one time, right? When you came in right before a meeting, he starts trying to ask me questions about something other than this meeting that was
Mm.
going on. And you were like, don't do it. Don't do it.
I tried.
Don't
Tried to throw the warning out there
don't
for
do
him.
it. This is game time to him.
Mhm.
We're going in and we're preparing for this meeting that's coming up. So don't distract from that meeting and dilute what potentially is going to come from that. And so I really appreciated that because that's what it was to me. Cause I was like almost I shared this with one of my coaches the other day, right? I'm like, I have no pride when it comes
Mm.
to coaching because you can't. If you're trying to get better, you have to you got to be able to take in the coaching as a form of love,
Mm.
because you wouldn't be talking. I knew this in football. If they stopped talking to you,
Yelling at you, whatever it is. Mhm.
if they s- this happens in training camp and football in the league, right? Training camp before cuts take place. If they stop talking to you, that's a problem.
Mhm.
That means that's the premise before what's about to happen.
They don't care anymore.
They're about to cut you.
Yeah.
So why am I pouring into somebody who's not going to be here,
Mhm.
right? Or I don't care about, or who's not coachable? And so if they're continuing to pour into you, you got to take it in, take it in, take it in. And I got to be on your team before you're going to be on mine, right? And so that was such a huge quality because that was something that got me so far in my life for the league, for the NFL, for even in business up to that point, was hearing what people were saying
Mhm.
from somebody that I wanted to hear from. And so that was such a massive quality that you brought to the table that we look for now.
Yeah, I it's funny too because I actually have a little story about kind of mentality and the effect that it has on you if you have a very strong mentality and you can handle certain things, right? And um, when I was actually at Oklahoma State, we used to do this testing every single year. And I don't know if you remember the old RG3 commercial, Gatorade commercial,
Yeah.
where he was like had a mask on, he's hooked up. So
Yeah, I
it
remember that.
tests, it's basically testing your VO2, so your cardiovascular health at the end of the day. And they used to do that testing on us, and it was dreadful. Because essentially you're breathing in your oxygen, you're exhaling your CO2, right? But because you have this mask on, you're limiting your oxygen intake, so it gets harder to breathe. And you're obviously hooked up to all these machines. And so they're watching your health, they're watching your body, how your heart rate is as you're hooked up. Well, every minute or so the treadmill would up an incline, but then up in speed. And so you'd have to keep the pace. Well, the cool thing about this, and I just thought this testing was fascinating, because it really does show you mentally if you can push through it, your body's going to follow, or how strong. If you were tough up here, well, how that can correlate in so many different ways. Um, but at the end of the testing, whenever you were done, I mean, some girls would actually pass out on the treadmill, but that also shows they were pushing themselves until basically exhaustion.
Yeah.
Um, but it was really cool to watch because at the end they would say, your body was in the red and it shut down 15 minutes ago. And the average human or the average person, I'm not saying by any means athletes are above and beyond, but that's the mentality we have to have sometimes.
Right.
And I remember at the end of it, they were like, "Your body shut down 15 minutes ago, and you just continue to push through it." And that, like, was so I remember calling my mom and dad afterwards and being like, "This testing, it was brutal. Hated every bit of it. Hated every bit of it." But it's fascinating because it really does show if your mental game is on point, what it can do to you in so many ways. You can take criticism. You can take, just knowing like, it's all right, push past it, keep going. Like, this is only gonna make me better at the end of the day. So that's funny that you bring that up too, because yeah, I think sports correlates to that so much, especially being able to take that constructive criticism and know that it comes from a good place. Um, and just being able to push yourself constantly every single day and like what having even a positive mindset will do to you.
Yeah.
Don't take it negatively.
Yeah.
Take it in a positive way. It's only going to make you better and take it, hear it, do better.
That's it.
Brutal.
I love that stuff because it was, we had just sent that Jordan Peterson video to you guys about
Yeah.
talking to the Navy SEAL and why he went through SEAL training
Mm,
when they just abuse you. Why would you subject yourself to that? And because you want to prove something to yourself, you
mm.
want to serve. He talked about serving his country at the highest capacity. What did he gain from that? Was that transformative? Yeah, it was transformative. Was it the worst thing you went through? Yeah, it was the worst thing I went through. So the worst thing that you went through was the most transformative thing in your life. And And what it was cool was basically like, in those environments where you're in these teams, because people are quitting, people are falling off,
Mm,
like, and this has happened with us, and this is like where relationships have forged because of the respect earned in the workplace.
mm,
Some of my best friends are from people I've worked with, right? And so it's so cool. And so, anyways, I think ultimately that's what forms the winning team.
mm,
And if there's anything that I love, like our big value prop when I share with advisors that want to come on or somebody that wants to come on, it's I'm like, join a winning team.
mm.
And I'm like, and it's going to be really hard, by the way,
Yeah.
but you're going to win. And I think it's the whole perspective is like everything is good for us, everything. And that's why my mentor who brought, or one of my mentors, Aaron, who brought that advisor to us, who fell off 5 months later, she was all apologetic. I reported back to her like, hey, this is what happened.
Mm,
She's all apologetic. She's, I'm sorry I wasted your time. And I'm like, you didn't waste anything.
yeah.
Don't ever think that. This gal has brought so much value to my life that I'm like, you couldn't do no wrong,
Mhm,
And I was like, no, no, no. This is on purpose because now we're even tighter on our interview and more scrutinizing over who we allow in our doors,
mm,
which is critical, right? Because yes, we want amazing, but what's probably like the best thing to get you to amazing is keep you from bad
mhm,
and knowing what's going to destroy you potentially. And a point, this is actually a point of contention in studies, um, is, um, yes, there is environmental influence, right? You could take a bad team member into a good and they can influence, but more often than not, if you take a toxic or a cancerous influence into a winning team, it will affect the winning team in a negative effect more than it affects them in a positive.
mm,
And so that's why this has been really critical for us. But it's like we want winners,
mhm.
we want high value people, awesome family workers, winners. And
Yeah.
those are the winners, the game changers right away.
Uplifting, positive, everything. Because there's so many times too where I get down and you or Shayla are there to be like, "Mackenzie, get over it. Move on," like, dwell on it for a second, but get over and
Yeah.
then you also want somebody that in their time as well, you're there to kind of because there's been times, whether it's past clients or individuals that's kind of affected the company in a negative way, right? And you would be down. I'd be like, hey, lesson learned. Let's
Yeah.
move on from it. And
Right.
it's like you need those people on your team because kind of like what you said in a toxic environment. If you bring someone in, they could create a toxic environment. It's kind of not allowing that negativity to affect the entire team,
Mm,
because it is very easy to get in a negative mindset. It
yeah.
is. Something goes
They'll
bad.
dwell on it forever.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll sit there all day and like, coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Yeah.
What would have happened if I did this? What could I have done better? And at the end of the day, they're just lessons.
Yeah.
It was meant to be. It's how it was. Take it as a lesson, dwell on it for a little bit, but then pick it up,
Yeah.
move on. It's not even worth the dwelling because then it's just gonna constantly just bleed that negativity day in and day out. So, um, I think that's been a big part is just having team members too, where it's like you're there to pick them up and they're there to pick you up
Yeah.
in those times. So that's been a big thing, I think.
Heck yeah. Well, look, we love having you. You've been a huge blessing for us, and we got some pretty. I love hearing you talk about our vision and going
Yeah.
forward and multiple teams, and that's it's huge. It's daunting and scary,
Yeah.
but it's
Oh yeah.
huge. And so we're thankful to have you, guys. If you got got a chance, go follow Makenzie, LinkedIn, Instagram. I think there's kind of her main pages there,
Yeah.
but go check her out. Don't be a creep, all right? But go connect with her, and she's key to helping us build and continue on this path. So super thankful for you.
Thanks, Corey.